everyone, and welcome to another edition of Wednesday night as we chat with what's happening in the world of sports and have a number of guests around the country to join us and talk about the same thing in all different types of sports. Roy Cummings always kicks things off. He's in Tampa, Florida. I can tell you that the Rays did win this afternoon, Roy. I know you know that, and they, at least they're keeping the pressure on the Yankees in the early going.
You know, I don't know if it's a matter of anybody keeping pressure on the Yankees. I think the Yankees are just doing what they can to try to keep up with the Rays. Rays are looking good. Of course, look, they're in Colorado. They swept that series. They probably should. Colorado was a big seller at the trade deadline. The Rays are a bit of a buyer, so they picked up some pieces that they hope will help them out. And so far, it's working out well for them. But yeah, the Rays are they continue to surprise a lot of people across baseball. But you know what? The Red Sox, they're coming, guys. I think the Yankees and Rays both have one eye on the Red Sox because they just seem to be getting stronger. I mean, we thought what they did to the Dodgers was something special until the Dodgers go to Chicago and get swept by the Cubs. And but here the Red Sox playing the White Sox in the series, and so far the Red Sox have continue to look exceptionally well. I mean, they're playing a record-setting baseball right now, and they are on a record pace the way they're playing and playing extremely well. So it's going to turn out to be a really good race, at the very least for a wild card spot or two. And obviously for that division title. But, yeah, the Rays continue to surprise everybody. They do it with as small a payroll as there is in baseball, and it just amazes everybody, I think. It should.
Well, your Cubs are putting a little pressure on as well. As they won, I believe, this afternoon again. I can't remember what the final score was, but I saw the Cubs won. And so they're trying to make their move as well. I know couple of big hits last night. I'll tell you, it's becoming a more and more interesting race. But what I'd like to touch on right at the top is what has been the major topic of all day yesterday on talk radio and a great deal of today, especially on ESPN. Former Braves Hall of Fame pitcher was on for about 20 minutes, well, maybe 15 or 20 minutes ago. And once the Dodgers made that trade, when they picked up the number one free agent out of Detroit, everybody said, well, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin. We're going to have a strike. So, gentlemen, everybody else is talking about it. Roger, we'll start with you. Is there going to be a strike yet? Is it all over?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, I doubt that there will not be a strike. I think there will be. And I don't think that they're going to avoid it, because I think that the owners, they want that salary cap, and I just don't see it happening. It's never happened in the past. I mean, they have a tax factor, but that's the way I feel. I see it coming. I hope it doesn't, but I think it will.
Roy, we've talked about it off and on all during the season, and actually even before the season got underway, what was going to happen as we unloaded, and especially at the trade deadline. And I think what happened with the Dodgers picking up the number one free agent really changed the complexion of where we stand right now.
I don't see how, and because it's a rental. Now, Tariq Skubal may want to be with the Dodgers next year. And if he is, well, okay, great. Good for the Dodgers. They did more than just rent a player. They signed a player who's in his prime. But look at the Dodgers, guys. One of the reasons their salary, their payroll is what it is because everybody on that team is 30 years old or older, and they're all all-stars. Ohtani obviously signed one of the richest contracts in baseball history. Freddie Freeman is a multi-time all-star, an MVP caliber player. He's 33 years old. Max Muncy, same thing. Everybody on that team is 30 years old, and they're stars. And and right now, guys, they're about as ordinary a looking team as there is. They got swept two series in a row now by the Red Sox and Cubs. Granted, two of the hottest teams in baseball. But and I still think a lot of people would probably believe that the Dodgers are the odds-on favorite to win the World Series. I wouldn't disagree with that, but they're struggling right now. They're beat up a little bit. They've got some depth, not a great deal, but they find ways to win. And look, just like any team, they're trying to make sure that they've got all the pieces they need to win a World Series because they know they need to win it now. They're looking at the Dodgers are probably looking at 2027, 2028 and saying, those years, if we get anything special out of these guys in those years, it'll probably be gravy on the mashed potatoes because at the end of the day, sooner or later, and it's starting, maybe it's happening now for all we know, the age is going to catch up to these guys. I don't see how Tariq Skubal being picked up by the Dodgers in a trade it indicates in any way how that's going to turn into a lockout or a strike. Don't see that happening, and I don't see it happening for this reason primarily. First of all, Major League Baseball is hot. It's the game it's drawing more fans, better ratings than it has in years. A lot of the moves that were controversial that the commissioner has made have really worked out well. The bigger bases have worked out well. The timing on the pitchers and the batters being engaged with one another has worked out well. All these little things, the universal DH has worked out well. Interleague play has worked out extremely well.
The challenge has worked out. The challenge has worked out extremely well.
Exactly. There's another one. The challenge has worked out well, and there may be more coming. Maybe more of these changes coming. These changes have all been good for the game. Fans are flocking to the stadiums in most cities. I don't see a reason to shut it down. The owners are making plenty of money. The players are making plenty of money. The teams that spend the most usually don't win. The Yankees, who spend in the top five every season on payroll, are once again chasing the Rays. The Mets, who spend in the top five or top three every year recently in payroll, are going to miss the playoffs. The Dodgers, they're going to make it, but again, they're getting old. And you got teams that that aren't high in payroll, like the Rays, right there in the mix. As are some other teams like Arizona and some of the teams that aren't paying a lot of money. So I think baseball is in a great spot right now. I think cooler heads will prevail, and I don't think there's any reason really for a salary cap. A salary floor, perhaps, but not a salary cap, because even the teams that are spending $220 and $230 million realize that it's not necessarily buying them the championships if they think it's buying them. So I'm going to continue to be optimistic until somebody shows me a good, solid reason why economically it has to be shut down. Because economically it doesn't need to be shut down. The owners can always police themselves and go out and spend a little bit more money on the farm system and scouting and smarter and better general managers and directors of baseball operations, because that's what's working for teams like the Rays. And I would say be more like the Rays and less like the Yankees and Dodgers and Mets, because your chances are just as good that you're going to get to the playoffs and win there as it is for anybody.
And throw Milwaukee in that bunch too.
Exactly.
At the same time, Roger, I did a show with Billy yesterday in Philly, and but he was headed out for the Hall of Fame game in Canton. So we did a quick show yesterday afternoon, and my point to him at that point was, and I throw it out to you fellows as well, any kind of a shutdown. We talked about it the whole off season last year and into the beginning of this season, that all these Philly players that we're talking about that right now are 6 games back at the Braves, but with an excellent chance to still be in the playoffs, if they don't win now, and they shut this sport down for a year, or they shut this sport down for 6 months, and the Philly players only get to play the second half of next year or something similar to that, what do you do, Roger?
Well, I can tell you that I was asked the other night or the other morning, early in the morning. John Johnson does 2 to 6 on WIP, and I called in, and there was a lot of crap going on from some listeners about the Phillies. Are they better now after they made that deal than before? Well, I don't think they're a very good team. I think they have a lot of named players. Last night, who got the things going? The guy they just got from the Giants, who's the 3-time battery champion, batting champion, and not anybody on the team that was there before last night and is there now too. It was this guy. And when you have to bring a player in and change your whole setup on defense about this, and that's what it takes to win a game with the new guy, then you got a problem. And that's why I said, and he agreed, John agreed with me, that this team is not a good team. It's old, they're overpaid, and I don't see them having a chance to go to the World Series. That's it.
Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily wouldn't have a chance because they had some very, very strong starting pitching. They got great starting pitching. I mean, if they're fortunate enough that every... Go ahead, Roy. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Finish your thought. I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. Finish your thought, Don.
No, I'm just saying. My thought was that those players that Roger's talked about can't afford to lose half a season. They're just getting too old for that now. They as we said during the off season and all during spring training, the Phillies are a team of now. They did make a good move. They did pick up a player that's going to help them. It helped them last night, and they did score runs last night. But that doesn't assure you of anything when you get to the playoffs. But the Dodgers had 3 players, 3 pitchers that are the top ERA in all of baseball. All of them under 2. All of them under 2. Now, you've got to, that's something you really have to look at and fight.
Well, they also have Max Muncy at his age who hits and is really good. And the Phillies, they have not, in the last 2 years, they've had the opportunity and they have blown it.
Roy?
Man, I love how you guys love to beat up on the Phillies. I'll tell you what, there are teams all over Major League Baseball.
Have they won a World Series, Roy? No.
Okay, well, guess what? They're as good as any other team in baseball, all right? They're as good as any team. First of all, I can tell you this right now. First of all, the reason they went out and got Luis Arraez is because Adolis Garcia is hurt and done for the year, in essence. He's on the 60-day disabled list. That's their starting right fielder, okay? When he went down, they had a major hole in their lineup that they had to fill. And there was really no great outfielder out there that was going to fill it. But they knew they could get Arraez, put him at first base. They could move Harper into right field, move Baum to first if they needed to, and move Stott over to third. That's great flexibility. That's number one. Number two, so that's the reason they had the deal. Not because they're trying to strengthen their team because they are, as Don says, they are a team for now. They're not worried about next year or the year after. They're worried about now because they know the window is closing. They have older players. You guys are right about that. But they also have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, at least in the starting rotation. One of the best. Okay? They tried to shore up the relief corps a little bit. That makes sense. They try to add a piece you added a batting champion to their team. So that helps. And here's another thing. You've got players all across that diamond with the Phillies that every other team in baseball would take, probably over the player they have right now. Harper at first base, most teams would want him over what they've got right now. Stott at second base, most teams would want him over what they've got right now. Turner at shortstop, same thing. Baum might be the only one who everybody would pass on. Real Muto possibly because he's older, and it looks like his age is catching up to his bat. But Brandon Marsh was an absolute steal of a player, and they love Justin Crawford, and they should, because he's the youngest guy on the team. And a lot of teams would take him as their starting center fielder. So there's nothing wrong with this team, guys. They are a playoff caliber team. And as we've seen in the playoffs the last few years, anybody, one of the great things about the baseball playoffs recently is that we've had a lot of surprises. We had Arizona a couple years ago, okay? We had Toronto last year. Granted, the Dodgers have been the supreme team, and they've gotten further than anybody and won more consistently. But, all you want to do is you want to get there. That's what it's a tournament now. And you want to be the best you can be in that tournament. You need to be able to win a short series and a long series. And the Phillies are as well positioned to do that as anybody. Are they a perfect team? No, there is no such thing. But I'll tell you right now, most people look at the Phillies and say they're better right now than the Yankees. They're better than the Mets. They're at least as good, if not better, than the Braves. And right now in the National League, that's about as good as you can ask for.
Fellas, we're going to sit back and wait. And as you say, and of course, anytime you get into one of these playoff situations in any sport, you're exactly right, Roy. You can't, anything can happen in the playoffs. You get two pitchers that did you beats during the regular season, and all of a sudden they come out, either come out of the bullpen or come out of the starting rotation. But the Phillies do have excellent starting pitching. Their only problem is their number one, whether you want to call them number 4 starter or number 5. But the top 3, Wheeler is as good as anybody in baseball. If you're going to throw him in the first game, in the best of a 3 or 5 game series, you got to feel you got a foot up, Roger.
Hey, listen, I agree with that. The thing is, they have had the opportunity to do this when those guys were even younger, and they can't hit in the playoffs. They have not hit. Arizona never should have won that. And they have never been the same in postseason since that debacle with Arizona. And Roy, I have to disagree with you. They are not as good as the Atlanta Braves.
Oh.
Well, we'll see in the playoffs, because I don't remember the Braves going very far in the playoffs over the last few years either, guys. I'd say their playoff performances are about equal. But, again, you're talking about the starting rotation. You say Wheeler, and then what? Well, wait a minute. You forgetting about Christopher Sanchez? You forgetting about Jesus?
Oh, no. I agree with that. I agree with the 3 starters.
I'm sorry what I was talking about. But, again, look, it's a team for now. Are they the best team in baseball? No, they're not. They're not as good as I would say they're not as good as the Dodgers, but they're good enough to beat the Dodgers. You make some breaks, you make things happen, and thankfully, what would you guys be saying if they didn't go get Luis Ariz? What would you be saying then? The bullpen situation it became too costly for them. They couldn't keep Hoffman anymore. They couldn't keep Strahm anymore, and that's where they're hurting. You just
saw a team go into LA and beat the Dodgers 3 straight. You don't see that happen very often. So it's possible. No question about it. It's possible.
Yeah.
And you look at the corresponding talent.
The Dodgers won last year, guys, because they got an incredible performance late in the game from a spare player. Okay? Josh Rojas suddenly hits a big home run and then makes an incredible play defensively to save the Dodgers in Game 7 of the World Series. So, they're a beatable team. And again, are the Phillies as good as the Dodgers? Maybe not. But I'll tell you what, they're virtually neck and neck. And maybe age is the reason. Because the Dodgers are getting a little bit older. They've played a lot of baseball over the last few years. But, I would say the time to complain is not now. I still think the Phillies, the window is still open for them. I think it's wide open. I think they've got a great opportunity here to go deep into the playoffs. And you know what? In most cities, guys, most fans would take that.
Hey, Don.
Well, fellas, let me just switch over to football a little bit here. Would you fellas say that Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, and maybe Arizona? I don't count San Diego, but are they the teams? Are they the teams we're going to look at in September, October?
How about the Red
in
Sox?
baseball? Yeah. I mean, all of them. Yeah. Again, we haven't talked much about Milwaukee, whether the Phillies beat Milwaukee, but Milwaukee, I don't know how they keep doing it. They're kind of like the Rays. You mentioned earlier, small market team, a bunch of guys that nobody's ever heard of, and just good ball players. They just play good, smart baseball. But I think you're talking about those are the teams. And you didn't mention the Red Sox. I think they're going to be there too. So
the Red Sox as well. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I no question. Yeah, Atlanta. I mean, it's the same group usually for the most part. We'll see. But
I thought Frank was going to say something.
It's going to be a great stretch like that.
Yeah, the thing that I was going to bring up, John, goes back to I just checked the archives, and February 10th of 26, we had Larry Bow on, and he talked about the same thing about the strike. And Larry's contention was they were going to do it and they were going to stay out. I talked to Dan Baker on Sunday, and I asked Dan the same thing. Dan said he hopes not. It looks like they're going to, but he hopes it's not going to be long. So that's just my input.
Hopefully we get Larry Bow to be on with us next week. We chat with him a little bit and get some of his ideas, not only about the restructuring of the team going into the last 2 months of the season and the trade that they just made, as Roy just indicated. Let's switch over now to the National Football League. And Roy, we chatted a little bit about the position of quarterback last year with the Bucs, and going into this year. Anything new in Tampa with the Bucs, or anything you'd like to talk about in the NFC South?
Yeah, nothing new with the Bucs. It's the same thing as it was before. Their nose tackle's still on a sit-in, I guess it is. Apparently he's got a back problem, but and the team's not worried about it. He's a veteran. He'll be fine. He'll be ready to go when the regular season starts. And the big question is, what are you going to get out of Baker Mayfield? Obviously, he's not happy with the contract. The contract they gave him, he's not happy. He can't be happy with the term. As far as the salary goes, he probably can't be unhappy with that. I mean, they did offer him a 2-year contract worth $100 million. So, along with a couple of incentives. So, I think, salary-wise, it was not disrespectful. But what Baker Mayfield is probably thinking is that, hey, I kept you guys alive in the playoff race after Tom Brady left, and did it for next to nothing in terms of, relatively speaking, in terms of what, quarterbacks in this league get. And here I am, I've proven myself to be, at least in the top 12, among quarterbacks in this league, and I'm the glue that keeps this team together. And you would think that you would want me, long term. But I think the issue is this, and if I mentioned this last week, guys, I apologize for repeating it. But I think the issue with Baker Mayfield and Vita Vea too, why they're not being offered contracts. And I think one of the reasons why the Bucs didn't retain Mike Evans or some of the other players that left is because they don't know who their coach is going to be next year. And I think that's the biggest problem facing this team. Mm-hmm. I think, guys, that my opinion is that Todd Bowles in Tampa needs to get to the NFC Championship game, and he may need to win it in order to keep his job. This team's not going to – making the playoffs and winning a game isn't going to be good enough. They're going to get rid of Todd Bowles, in my opinion, unless he gets to the NFC Championship game and wins it. That's what I think is the bar for him. And if that's the case, if you're looking at a new coach, well, you don't want to saddle your new coach with a 30-plus-year-old nose tackle on a 5-year contract. If you hire a defensive coach who's going to change to a 4-3 scheme, that's number one. Number two, you don't want to keep a quarterback like Baker Mayfield, who's a little bit controversial. You either love him or hate him, probably, if you're a coach. And if you're an offensive coach and you don't like him, well, then you're not going to want to have him signed to a 5-year contract. So I think the Bucs have kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner here. And it's all because they just don't really know who their coach is going to be. There's no real reason to fire Todd Bowles just yet, but there's no reason to keep him either if he can't get you to the playoffs and get you deeper into the playoffs and win some games there. So I think we're looking at a big, at a long season, and the Bucks are kind of rolling the dice, hoping that everything comes together for them, and it's probably Todd Bowles somehow gets them into the Super Bowl.
Roger, you had a chance to talk Falcon football a little bit this afternoon, as well as college football, and Jalen Walker, they took him off the field yesterday, and I don't know what the extent of the injury is, whether he's limited.
ACL, gone for the year.
Gone for the year. There you are.
Yeah, I've been at practice all 3 days this week, sitting up with the fans on the hill. And it was great because you do get to watch a lot, and the Falcons have a lot of uncertainty at quarterback. I mean, with Penix, with Tua, Strand, who was a late round pick, and also number 13 in your program, and he wasn't in there on Monday, is Cooper Rush. That was the backup to the Cowboys last year, wasn't he? And so they have a lot of uncertainty. And then when Darrell Ledbetter and I had lunch, we talked a lot about it. And you can just sense it. And I think there's a lot going on. I think Kevin Stefanski is, I think, a really good coach. There was like an altercation between two players, and he sent one guy home. From from a camp, not home, but I mean, back to the apartment or wherever they might be. So everybody seems to be in agreement that the quarterback situation is very uncertain, and neither one of the big names has stepped up to really show that they're ready to take charge. Bijan Robinson did get the highest contract, highest number of dollars that any running back has ever gotten. He's the highest paid now. So we'll wait and see. But the quarterback situation. Just about to call you.
Okay. I'll merge in.
Another player that was injured in practice had another ACL problem as well. So the Cowboys are having a little problems as well.
The Cowboys, one thing you can count on them to do, you can't always count on them to be competitive, but you can count on them to bring some drama. And whether it's state in terms of injury, as it is this time, or something that they've concocted on their own. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. They're just gonna create drama and bring the attention towards them. So no surprise there. But look, I think the Cowboys actually are a pretty good football team. Look, one of the highest scoring team in the NFL. So they're going to be okay. They should be okay. You never quite know, but they should be all right. It's really more a question, I think, with them is, can they get the defense settled? And the NFC East is it's a bit of a toss-up, guys. I mean, the Eagles are the prime team there. They're the elite. But the Giants think that they can possibly contend here. We'll see if that happens. Washington, they're certainly going to probably field a competitive team of one that can at least give somebody some trouble. And then Dallas, you just never know. I mean, if a few things go their way, they win a couple of games that, outside of the division that, maybe they shouldn't, or as people don't see them winning, they could suddenly be a surprise too. So it'll be interesting, but the Eagles is still the team to beat there, no question.
Roy, I'll tell you, a lot of fun tonight.
One thing, Don, I got to
go ahead.
Myself. I made it. I said it was Stefanski that sent a player home. I apologize. It was Brian Schottenheimer with the Cowboys that sent a player home.
He's like his father. He's taking care of everything. Don't worry about it. I won't tell anybody you said that.
Drama. Okay. Drama.
Roy, we'll talk more about this. We'll talk more about the South as we go along over the next couple of weeks, and because I think it's going to be one of the most competitive. Although, whether or not the numbers will be 9-8, 8-8, 7-9. I don't know who's going to win or lose, but I think it's going to be a very competitive division. during the course of the season, but not necessarily, Roy. I don't think there's going to be an odds-on favorite there. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know that there is. I mean, I think it's Philadelphia, but look, the Cowboys could surprise us. The Giants could surprise us. Yeah, as you said, I think it's going to be it should be a good. I mean, it always is. It's usually a 2-team race, but this could be a 3-team race.
Roy, as always, thank you very, very much. We'll do it again next week. It's
Thank you,
always
Roy.
a pleasure, and nothing there but information. Thank you.
Have a great week, Roy.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Roger spent the week this week talking about a young player down there in the Atlanta area, Donald LeBlanc. And we're going to be fortunate enough to have the young fella join us. He's going to be going to Villanova. I'll have Roger introduce Dom and also talk a little bit about the background because he's had a chance to see him at his college, and he's going to be making that move to Villanova, which is a very strong move for a young guy coming from Atlanta going to Villanova. Roger?
No,
We're
Don.
going to be on after 8 o'clock, Don.
Mike is on, Don.
Who's on now?
Mike Zimzak.
Oh, Mike Zimzak. Okay, then we got a lot of news for him, too.
See, Roger?
All right, Mike Zim.
Roger,
Mike Zimzak.
you see that Alzheimer is exchangeable.
No, he told me he was going to be on at 7:30 when I talked to him, but they changed their mind. Okay, well, all right. Mike Zimzak, let's go to a key issue with the MLS first before we go back to all the troubles in Fightnwords and what's happening there. We talked about it last week, but that was just the beginning of a time bomb. So let's start the MLS first. Larry Berg is going to be making a move. There are going to be a lot of switches, and give us your insight on what's happening there.
So, as you said, Larry Berg's coming over. He's going to be taking over as commissioner of MLS from Don Garber, who has been basically the only commissioner that they've really ever known. Garber being responsible for the growth of the league and negotiating the rights package with Apple. So he's been critical in shaping the league to this point. He's stepping down at this point, and Berg's coming in at a very important time. How is this league going to grow? Right now, the league has grown and increased revenue primarily by expansion and generating higher expansion fees. But at some point in time, they're going to need to put together a model that generates revenue without, because they can only expand but so far. The Apple, they had originally negotiated a 10-year deal. It looks like that rights deal is going to be, they're going to opt out after this year, which means that MLS is going to have to renegotiate broadcast rights again. What is that going to look like? Berg already shot down the prospects of promotion of relegation, which is going to be music to the ears of the owners and sponsors, but may not necessarily go over as well with with certain elements of the fan groups who have been looking for, I guess, that drama of promotion and relegation. So, how this league moves forward and how Berg is able to move this beyond what Don Garber started is going to be interesting to see as he takes the reins.
One thing that interested me during the course of the season this year, you talked about it many times, is the scheduling and the processing of how they were not only distributing television games, but how they were distributing games, period. Competition against a football game or whatever it may be. Do you think that the new commissioner is going to step in and, make a better decision about how they're going to run the league in terms of competing with other sports and not necessarily going up against big games on big days?
Earlier, it was discussed, it was brought up that they were going to go to a more fall-spring schedule to put the league more in line with European leagues and the quote-unquote FIFA calendar. I don't know what the FIFA calendar is because that works when FIFA decides that they're going to have tournaments in the summer But then you look at what they're going to do in 2032 when the World Cup is back over in the Middle East, and it'll be winter ones. So FIFA kind of makes this calendar up at their own whim. It has been. I'm going to be interested to see if he keeps that, and they go forward with this idea of playing from September until about December, taking off, and then restarting the season again in February. I have not been I've not been a supporter of that. I think that it is a mistake for the league. I think that, playing cold weather games in cold weather stadiums outdoors is going to be an issue. I have been to a couple. It is not an enjoyable experience. I think that competing reviews with the bulk of the college football season and professional football season, and then playing the remainder of the bulk of your season going up against NHL and NBA and the playoffs and the Stanley Cup, I think you're fighting for eyes that you don't have to. I think this has been a league that has a number of season ticket holders and has developed a solid fan base amongst adults, but most of those adults who were my age when they started, who were younger, who are my age, who were in their 20s and stuff when they started, have grown up, we've gotten married, we've got family, we still love our team, and we want to take our family to the team. It's going to be harder to justify doing that. The summer was always a good time for that because schools are out. So I really think that this is a strategic mistake, and I think they really need to reconsider this, but I'm not exactly sure what stakeholders outside of, I know FIFA and the European leagues have kind of mentioned that this should be done, but I'm not sure what input or even understanding they have about American demographics and who goes to games. And it's just, I question who's really pushing forward with this, because it's not something that I hear a lot of ticket holding fans clamoring to say, like, you know what, we really need to be playing in September and October instead of, I know it's hot in DC, especially in June and July, but there's ways around that. I just don't see where, I don't know what segment of the fan base is really clamoring and go up against NFL football and college football on Saturdays and Sundays and go down to a December game at Audi Field or to a December game on the Delaware River in Chester or outdoors in Minnesota or to any number of these outdoor stadiums in cold weather areas. I just don't know who's really wanting to do that.
Roger, the Seattle and Atlanta have always been the big leaders in MLS, not only fan-wise, but team-wise. You're right there in Atlanta, and tell me your thoughts about the MLS and what they're doing and with the new commissioner.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting, Don and Mike, because a couple of things. At the Falcons training camp, they had a Fanatics exhibit there with all the paraphernalia. And I got to talk to the woman, the manager. Well, she also runs the big store at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And hopefully we'll have her on and be on when you're on, Mike, because she gave insight into what it was like to have to run the stores at Mercedes-Benz during the World Cup. It's really interesting, very fascinating when you have people from all over the world, So, but the other thing is that I was talking to a young woman who is in social media with the Falcons, and I know he used to be with the Falcons, and he's with the United now. He's vice president of social media and the website and everything. And she had no idea who he is. So obviously there is definitely a firewall between the Falcons operation and the United operation. And the question, and I asked Darryl Ledbetter at lunch about it. I said, do you ever go over to see the United complex because it's over towards that side of town. And he said, no. He said he's going through there trying, and it's not something that's easy to find, I guess. So I think that it's a situation that I think is there's uncertainty. I'm with Don that I think the new commissioner needs to get back on over-the-air television. For instance, ANF is going to broadcast all the Hawks games. I think it is over-the-air television. They've been doing a lot of Braves games. And I think that it would be advantageous for the MLS to get back and to get the people out by giving them free TV to watch games. What do you think, Mike?
I think that in a perfect world, that's exactly what you want to do. The problem was that they did not get the rights that they wanted on the NAT. They didn't get the price that they sought for the sort of national deal that they wanted. So they took this risk with Apple, and the subscription-based model didn't really work. They lost a lot of eyes. I think that they underestimated the willingness of their fan base to pay for an additional subscription fee to watch to watch their team, and they definitely greatly overestimated the price that people were going to pay. You were charging, it was an additional $60 for the season for the MLS TV package. Your average soccer fan is carrying a whole bunch of subscriptions anyway to Paramount Plus and ESPN and Disney Plus and Hulu and Peacock just to be able to watch international games that we want to watch, the Champions League, the Bundesliga, the Scottish Premier League, all of those. And those come with, you can justify paying for a Peacock subscription because there's a Disney Plus subscription because there's other things you get. This was having an Apple TV subscription and then paying almost, $60 additional for this on top of over the top. And it's just, I don't need that much. It's not something that I don't need to. So I think they greatly overestimated that, and they need to get back to a regional broadcast with national games like they did before. Now, the question is, are they going to accept the best offer that they get, or are they going to try and hold out thinking that they can get more? If they hold out, I think that it's going to be more problematic for them. You get the best deal that you can get with the idea of growing the game. When they were on ESPN, when they were on Fox, when they were on CBS, the game was growing. They were attracting more viewers. If you go behind another paywall, I think that the lesson has been learned that this is not the NFL. This is not they're not even Major League Baseball. It's hard enough to convince somebody to pay over the top for MLB TV to be able to watch a baseball team that their family, that may have been in their family for generations. So I think that they need to be very sensible and strategic with these upcoming moves.
Well, that's one of the host of problems. It's a big week in soccer, and Bocachino re-ups through 2030 for the Cup. And the U.S. Soccer better hope that he fulfills the terms of the contract. The billionaire is going to keep his money in soccer. And your thoughts about, is he going to stay for the 4 years? Is he going to stay till 30? Is he going to take the money, or is he going to work for a couple of years and leave and go back to the European, one of the European teams? What's your thoughts there? A lot of discussion.
Number one, I think that as hard as I have been at points in time, I've gone through the full range of emotions with Mauricio Pochettino and the U.S. men's national team. When he got hired, I was excited. Here's a great European coach. He's got a really great pedigree for building a team, and he's done a lot with not exactly world superstars on the stage. He's been great at developing players, developing a style of play. As the 2 years, close to 2 years went on. I had some questions about, what is it that we're doing? What is the exact style of play that we're going with? What is his lineup going to look like? What are his lineup choices going to look like? I couldn't get it. Then I saw them play against Paraguay, and in the group stages, and it looked really good. I thought they did a great job. I was impressed by how he had gotten so much out of Alex Freeman and Florian Balogun, and I thought that team looked really, really good. I think that the quarterfinal matchup, or the round of 16 matchup against Belgium, was a complete utter dud. The players weren't up to it. Pochettino got out coached. I think it was a massive dud, but overall, I can say that I think it's a net positive that he stays. I think we've seen a lot of growth. I think there's been a lot of identification of things that need to be improved, and that he can continue to have a positive impact on the development. Do I know whether I will not just sit here right now and say that he's going to be the manager of the team in 2030. The last handful of managers who have been extended by U.S. Soccer after their World Cup cycle, it hasn't worked out well. Greg Berhalter was fired after the protracted decision to bring him back. He was fired and replaced with Mauricio Pochettino. Jurgen Klinsmann made it about another year, or made it another 2 years before the results started declining. He was fired. Of the recent managers who's hung on, only Bruce Arena and Bob Bradley actually made it to that second World Cup. Bob Bradley went out in the round of 16 to Ghana again for a second time. Bruce Arena went into the World Cup in Germany in 2006 with what people thought was an absolute loaded team, and finished doggone near bottom of the entire tournament, although they were the only team to not lose to Italy, but 1 point from their group stage games in an early departure home. So just that history tells you that it's going to be tough for him to see out these next 4 years. You add in the fact that the better that he does with the U.S. men, the more teams will come sniffing around. I would put it at 50-50 and pick him that he's still here. That being said, there is specific contract language. There's a buyout in the contract that says if he does leave to go to another European team, there's a pretty steep buyout in there that would enable U.S. Soccer to go out and retain the services of a comparable level of coach who would be available and willing to take them on. There are plenty of people around whose names have been mentioned and who could be available. So I don't have a crystal ball good enough to say that Poch will be back. Coach will still be the manager in 2030. I think that the odds, I don't know. I think the odds are unlikely, but I still think that he has an offer, and I'm comfortable with him still being the manager of the U.S. men.
Well, Ken Rivers is going to keep that billions of dollars of his in operation. He's going to continue to fund. Roger?
Well, Mike, by the way, I just want to let you know, I just heard from Tom LeBlanc, and he's tied up. He will not be able to be on tonight. So we'll go to plan C, Frank. But,
got it.
Mike, let me ask you, do you think there's an American that can be a great coach for the USA team?
I think a big name that nobody's talked about right now is a guy who's coached over in Germany by way of Italy, by Pellegrino Matarazzo, who I love because his first name is Pellegrino. He just has a really cool soccer-sounding name. The other thing is he's like 6'5". This guy is immense. And if nothing else, he would be able to intimidate everybody else. he has had a lot of success in both with smaller teams in both Italy and in Germany. I think he's American born. He's from New York. He has expressed willingness to come over. I think that if we were in a situation where we needed a manager, wanted an American manager to do it, that would be the direction that I would be looking at first. In a vacuum, I would have said Jesse Marsh, who's currently the manager of Canada, but I think that bridge was burnt when he was passed over for Greg Berhalter not once but twice, and he has basically said that he will not do that. So there would need to be a lot of fence mending. I would be interested to see, having previously been in the U.S. soccer setup and currently out of a job, but a guy who managed a significant number of players on that team, both at the national youth teams and at the club level. I'd be interested to see what Jim Curtin could do with that job. So there are, I think, managers who are American who can come in and potentially do that job. I would like to see maybe Jim Curtin on them. I would like to see if U.S. Soccer could put a little bit of pressure maybe on Pochettino to bring in an American coach into his setup. I mean, he's got his top lieutenants, but it would help to have, I think, I've seen this at different stops before where, you have guys, potentially maybe the next head coach in there is on the staff already. If Pochettino is the coach in 2030, I find it hard to believe that he would be the coach still in 2031. So even if having a backup plan, another young American coach in there learning from him, I don't think it's an insult to him and his ability. It's just like, hey, we know what the tea leaves look like. We want to have somebody who can come in and continue your project after you leave, because inevitably you will leave.
Let me jump in. The Phillies have jumped ahead 2-1 in the bottom of the second inning. Washington up right now in the third, and so the Washington jumped out 1-0. Phillies started on a home run, hit the foul pole, and scored another run to take a 2-1 lead down the third inning. Now, getting back to Mike Simzak, for those folks that are just joining us, Mike, one of the premier soccer covers in the United States. He sees more games and covers more games than any of us. And there's also a major internal problem going on right now on a European front, because they never got paid the $2 million or $1 million for finishing second in the tournament 2 years ago. And they're saying they're being blackmailed now because they're not getting the money. How can you do that?
I could say, like I said, when it comes to FIFA and UEFA and their payments and what they give out and what they don't give out and when they give it out, how they give it out, and who gets it. Good luck, gentlemen. Good luck. Good luck.
Anything hidden, do you think, Mike?
I know that UEFA and FIFA do not have a really great relationship. You saw that completely blow up last week in what happened with Gianni Infantino and the plan to privatize the World Cup. UEFA coming out and saying UEFA was the first and most aggressive of the confederations to come out and say that not only that they were not in favor of it, but that if this went through, they would boycott all future.
I was going to say, they said they'd withdraw. They wouldn't even participate.
But there's been this tension gone and Roger in between FIFA and UEFA for years. And, they were aggressive and they couched it in all the right language about preserving the good of the game and integrity and things like that. But at the same time, I've really questioned sometimes whether UEFA, whether the likes of Denmark and England and Spain and France and Belgium, whether they really care about what's for the best interest of the game and preserving the game and preserving the integrity of the game in Malaysia and India and South Sudan and places like that. or whether this is more of a power grab. I'm not saying one way or the other. It was like they were very aggressive. The breakdown of that relationship was laid bare, and how aggressive they came out and say not only that we will we'll vote against it if it goes through, we will withdraw, because they know that there can be no realistic World Cup without European teams. You can't have a legitimate tournament if you don't have a team like Spain or England or Germany or France in there. I would have normally said Italy, but we have seen the last couple of times that you can have a World Cup though without Italy.
Roger,
but if you don't.
Well, I'm sure you can. Okay. No, I just wanted to get back for a minute on what you were talking. We were talking about, and you were talking about on the TV coverage and paying a premium. You know, Don and I do not believe in having to pay for anything extra on sports. Okay. And we did not watch the All-Star game. And I may have brought this up, but I don't think I did. Because it was on Netflix, the viewership, the number was 5.5 million, I believe, and which is much lower, I believe, than the All-Star games in the past. So it's not only Don and myself that do not pay for TV sports. A lot of people didn't. But that's why I think it's so important, Mike, and you would agree, that they get back on over-the-air television like they did, like you said, ESPN, Fox. They did a great job of promoting it. And Fox just did, I think, a miraculous job on the World Cup. I really do. And that's what I think needs to be done to really get the MLS to be a favorite TV product for everybody.
You know, and I know that it is a tricky deal with ESPN and Fox. And let's just take ESPN and Fox right now. And given that ESPN owns college football, they have a Sunday lineup, at least a Sunday daytime lineup, that is predicated largely around the NFL. Right. And a primetime lineup that is predicated largely around the NFL. Fox has college football and NFL football. There is no way that if MLS goes to a fall-spring calendar, that ESPN or Fox are going to pay the money that MLS would like, and even if they did, they're not going to broadcast that game over the air, because which NFL broadcast, which pregame show, which postgame show, which Sunday night football game, which Monday night football game, which college football game, which SEC game, which Big Ten game, are they going to preempt to broadcast Vancouver versus Nashville?
Right.
I couldn't agree with you more. Right. You know, we said it all last year, and I'll continue to say it till the day I die. You're not going to compete against those kind of odds, and that's exactly what they're trying to do.
Number one. Number two, the commercial revenue isn't there because, unlike in football, you do not have consistency of play stoppages to guarantee time, commercial break, right? You don't have that 3-minute commercial break every time the ball stop. Every time there's a punt, every time there's the ball, there's a stoppage in play, right?
Correct.
So even if they insist, and it's going to be very, 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 very hard for people to buy that the players need a hydration break in Minnesota in December. Like, all of a sudden you're going to tell me, well, or maybe you're going to call it a warming break. The only way that they can even remotely come close to that is if they do what they did in the World Cup, and you have that 2-minute quote unquote hydration break halfway through the quarter, or halfway through the first and second half. And even then, you're going to get a lot of people who complain that all we're doing this for is for TV timeouts. I just don't think it is possible, especially if they go to that schedule, that they're going to get the premium that they want, which means it's going to end up either you're going to have to hope that you can stay where you are and develop a national and local broadcasting rights deal, or it's going to end up on a streaming platform like Netflix, like Paramount Plus, something like that.
Well, I always like to have Mike Sims, I say, with us a little bit longer when Doug joins us, because the two of them like to get together and talk about Washington and Baltimore. Doug, of course, closer to the Baltimore area, whereas Mike's closer to the Washington area. But we got a lot of football.
I'm in Delaware this week. I'm in Rehoboth right now.
Ooh.
That's not bad.
I'm on the happily at the peninsula on Indian River Bay, looking out at one of the what I believe to be the 11th hole, which is where my mom and stepfather live.
Nice to have people with a lot of money join us on the show. That's why.
That's great.
That's what we have Mike. That's what we have Mike on every week, because he has a lot of extra money he can spend. But let's bring Doug in, because we'll switch baseball momentarily, because they traded away a pretty good player at the last minute on the trading deadline, even though he's had a bad ankle and a couple other injuries toward the course of the year. But I'll tell you, the Red Sox, they figure they're going to reach out a little bit, and he's got to be getting close to being ready to play. Doug, what can you tell us?
No, Doug, done. We went to Plan C. Doug doesn't come on till 15. Mike's filling in for Don, which was 7 to 7:30. We told him 7. Okay.
Okay, Roger, you're up.
I'm still here. Yeah.
Go ahead, Roger.
Today. No, okay, Mike. I'm glad you are enjoying a beautiful time in Rehoboth. When I was covering in Delaware, I used to be down there quite a bit, for business. So it's nice. But let's talk about the Commanders. They're in camp. Okay. We talked about the Falcons, because I was there the last 3 days, and we talked about the Cowboys, and we talked about the Eagles. And we don't know about the Giants with John Harbaugh, how they are going to look. But how about the Commanders? Because they have, Mike Quinn, Dan Quinn, I should say, I'm sorry, back as their coach. And what's the feeling about the fandom about the Commanders as they proceed? Because their first preseason game's next week, and the Hall of Fame game is tomorrow night.
So they just made a move, another signing. They signed Stephon Diggs. He's a local guy, played his college ball at Maryland, a 1-year, $12 million deal. So he's going to come in. That solidifies the wide receiver room. They brought back Fabian Moreau for a bit of a reunion to give him a little bit more depth in the secondary. So they're still quietly building out their roster. I am not sure what how the Fabian Moreau deal is going to play out. I think he's a veteran corner who can add depth. I don't know the extent to which he's going to stick and stay on the roster. I certainly believe Stephon Diggs, he was still just barely, but he was over 1,000 yards last year. So I think he can add something opposite Scary Terry McLaurin that they haven't really had, where you can say that you actually have that two wide receiver dynamic. And I think that will improve the outlook for the offense. Laramie Tunsil and Sam Cosmi were both back playing today, so those were not long-term injuries. Nick Allegretti is still out. He's their center. A lot of questions about the center position. You know, they got rid of Tyler Biadasz. They didn't get anybody in free agency. Nick Allegretti, who's been a guard tackle kind of guy throughout his career, sliding over and becoming your starting center. But I don't know many teams that like to kind of go with an unknown at center if they don't have to because of the importance of that position, especially when you're playing in front of and blocking for a quarterback who's coming off of injury. So
let's go back to your point you made earlier, Mike, and that was that you talked about Dan and the fact that, you know, there are certain, whether the writers or broadcasters or whatever, that think he's a little bit on the hot spot because of what happened last year. Maybe you get challenged after losing his quarterback because of injury, which really hurt the ball club in a number of ways, not just the quarterback. And you were saying that you thought it was very unfair that they would be pointing the finger at Dan and saying, hey, if he doesn't turn his club around by mid-season this year or close to the mid-season, then he may be in hot water.
I think that I don't agree that he needs to be in hot water to that degree. I can't wrap my head around a guy who takes a team to a NFC Championship game, has one of the greatest single-season turnarounds in history, goes in, has a team that is a year older, that suffers from more injuries than just about any team in the NFL, but more games lost to injury than any team in the NFL, and some really poor personnel decisions. You know, Dan Quinn ultimately wasn't the one who traded for Marshawn Lattimore. Dan Quinn wasn't the one who gave up the picks for Deebo Samuel, who turned out to be a bit of a bust. You know, he wasn't the one who traded away the draft pick that went on to become Cooper DeJean. You know, I don't think that you can. He didn't make the decision unilaterally to re-sign or not re-sign key players to build a team around a bunch of older veterans like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, who, while good players, all they did in between 24 and 25 was get a year older, and it showed. And so I don't think that you can necessarily blame him for the fact that the team was pretty poorly constructed last year. And to say that he has to accomplish some great feat this year or else he's going to lose his job, I think is just ridiculous. You know, if you say that he's on the hot seat, you know, what does that look like? How many games are you telling me that this man has to win? Is it 6? Is it 10? Is it 11? Does he have to go back to the NFC Championship game? What are the mitigating factors? Can he control? You know, Jaden Daniels goes down, and I don't wish injury on anybody, but if Jaden Daniels goes down to practice tomorrow and is out for the season and they have another losing season, do you fire Dan Quinn because he was competing for the whole season with Marcus Mariota at quarterback? You know, what are the metrics that we're judging this man by? And so I think that you got to see how the season plays out. Now, if it is clear that it's not working with him, and that looks like they're playing bad, they're getting blown out, they have all the players, and it's just clearly, you know, like Richie Kotite era football where it's just clear that he just doesn't have, that he's not got it, then I can hear it. And, you know, maybe it's time to make a move on it. But that's not what I have seen from this man while he's been in Washington and throughout his tenure in the NFL as a coordinator and as a coach.
Roger?
Yeah, speaking of Ertz, he was seen with Andrew Luck. I guess they played at Stanford together, right?
Yeah,
and,
they did.
Yeah, they were together out in California, seeing, I guess, at 49ers practice today together. So it's always, you know, there was that talent that I think we all agree it's a shame he had to retire so early in his career. Andrew Luck, who knows how great he would have been, you know. But But anyway, and I'm hoping that Ertz gets a job. I really do. I think he can really serve and be a great mentor on any football team. And what do you think about that, Mike?
I wouldn't be upset if I saw him back with the Eagles as sort of that mentor position, but I know that, roster spots on a 53-man roster are valuable, and it's hard to bring somebody back just for the sake of nostalgia. So if there's a need that develops, then certainly I think he can be he can go in there and maybe fill that need, but he's in a position where he's going to have to wait and see how that market continues to develop and what opportunities are out there right now. Because, not many people are going to be banging down the door on a mid to late 30s tight end who's coming up.
Hello?
Gracious good evening, sir. We're trying to make reservations for 17 people for golf lessons.
Oh boy, I'm only allowed to handle 10 at one time. Apparently,
Oh,
that's
my
a rule
God.
that I didn't know. Yes, I got in trouble.
Oh my God.
I had 12 kids in my camp, and I did it by myself, and I got the shits for.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Sorry to hear about that.
Well, you can only follow the rules if you know them.
That's right. I'm gonna merge you in with the guys here.
Okay, cool.
Straight down with the Dallas Cowboys #1, of course. As Roy said earlier in the program, they scored points, but that didn't help them last year.
I think the East is going to be, the Cowboys did do a lot of work on their defense this offseason. They could not stop. They couldn't hold a bucket of water last year, their defense, but they made a lot of improvements. The signings and the draft picks that they made, I think, are going to show pay dividends on the defensive end of the ball. Can George Pickens keep his head on his shoulders and play through this franchise tag without creating too much of a scene? It's always going to be an issue of chemistry and what Cowboys team actually shows up. The Eagles, how are they going to play without A.J. Brown and with another new offensive coordinator? Everybody's talking about this. I think you can legitimately kind of call this a make or break year for Jalen Hurts to say, like, hey, I know that you have done nothing but win. I know that you are you're a Super Bowl MVP and won Super Bowl. If not for the unfortunate series of events in another, you had outplayed Patrick Mahomes, you would have been a Super Bowl MVP twice. But, is that a product of your play or just the supporting cast that you had around you? So you're going to really need to show something a little bit more than you have in the previous two seasons, even with a Super Bowl win, for us to believe that it's time that it's worth keeping you, or because how he's got a quick trigger and he'll move on quick. So what do they look like? I think both the Commanders and the Giants will be greatly improved. The one thing you can say with the Giants with Jim Harbaugh is that they are going to be a tough team, and that they're going to play 4 quarters of football, and that they're going to play hard. And I think certainly with Cam Scatterboot back there, Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball and stuff like that. And I think that he's going to get a chance to do that. But you're right to question how much talent is actually on that team. Over/under on Commanders wins this year is at 7.5. Personally, I think they might be a little bit over on that one. I could see them being an 8-9 win team, but how healthy is Jaden Daniels? I think the defense is going to be a lot better. I think that the wide receiver room and the offense just got a lot better with the addition of Stephon Diggs. I think that, an 8-9, 9-8 season, despite the fact that they have a tough early stretch, I don't think that's that far outside the realm of the possible for them. And I definitely think the Giants will be better and tougher. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting, very competitive, and we're back to the old NFC black and blue division.
Hey Don, Don, we
Yeah,
have
Go ahead.
Doug is with us now.
Doug is on.
I can go eat dinner.
Well, we'll let you get out of here. We'll let you get out of here early, Mike. Thank you very much for covering all for us, and we'll run right into Doug, and I'll ask the same question I had said just before you left. They made a last-minute trade with a pretty valuable product that went to the Red Sox, even though he's been injured in a couple of places, an ankle and so forth. Doug, give us a little rundown on your player that you lost. Who's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, at the trade deadline, I think you're in each year's market, you're looking for specific players, and some of those players are premium players, and some of those positions are lacking. And I think Mike Elias had a very difficult, probably lead up to the trade deadline with his stance and what he was going to do. Unfortunately, the poor play of the Orioles in the beginning of the season, I think, kind of handcuffed him to the spot where he wanted to be a buyer, but it turns out that we were sellers. And it's a tough thing. I mean, the Orioles in 2018 drafted Adley Rutschman, first overall, and I think the full intention was that he was going to be the face of this franchise. And I think as a Baltimore Oriole fan, we were waiting for him to make the transition from college to minor leagues to the major leagues, and hopefully be the guy that we drafted at 1-1 that was the savior of this team moving forward, and a building block to put a lot of different people around. And he was a 3-time All-Star, but I think that the catching spot, there were obviously teams looking for catchers, and there weren't a lot of good ones available. And I think that, Mike Elias probably got, the best offer he could for him. And I think that the return, the 2 pitchers and position player we got, there's a player to be named later, and the catcher that they threw in was probably more than he thought he could get. I mean, the 3 players that we got in return were all top 10 prospects from the Red Sox. The one pitcher that we got from them immediately went to our first overall, prospect in our minor leagues. So, it was a tough day. I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of tough goodbyes and some different things that happened, on Adley's part, but that's the nature of the beast in terms of the business. And I guess they felt like his value was the highest it could be, and now was the time.
This is Doug. It's now our PGA professional, our master PGA professional, by the way. And we talk golf. We also talk football, and we talk baseball. And he followed the Orioles so closely, and just got back from the Hall of Fame with his youngster who was playing up there in a big tournament, and had a chance to see some of the young players around the country at that age. And a very, very fun experience. And Roger, you're up.
Doug, I was thinking about you when I was, I guess I was watching or listening to the Orioles and the Phillies over the weekend. And the Orioles won, and then the Phillies won too. And but what do you think? I think the Orioles have the potential, but I don't see them every day. Okay. Right. But I follow some of the names, Gunnar Henderson, things like that. I just think that there's got to be something that can be done to get them moving. What's your opinion about their future?
Yeah, it's I think if you're a Generation Xer and you lived in Maryland for most of your life, and you've adopted the Orioles and been an Oriole fan, I think you're for the most part, you've rooted for a losing franchise. Born in 1974, I remember watching the Orioles win the World Series in 1983. Rick Dempsey was your MVP, and things were great. And I think Mike Boddicker was our last 20-game winner that same year. I think it's been a very long time since the Orioles can say. I mean, in the mid to late 60s and 70s, the Orioles were a top franchise. They played in, 5 different World Series. They beat the Big Red Machine. They beat, the Dodgers with Sandy Koufax.
The Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Phillies, 83.
That was a great time to be an Oriole fan, but I mean, it's been really lean since then. I mean, the mid to late 90s, we played in 2 ALCS. We lost both of those. I believe one to the Indians, and then maybe the Yankees, and that little shit stuck his arm out and caught that ball, and they called it a home run or whatever. You've got the Buck Showalter years. Buck Showalter's very revered in Baltimore as a great manager. I love the guy, but he had a losing record, but we won. We had couple different playoff appearances. I think another ALCS visit that we lost. But it's the Mike Elias tenure has been 8 years of 6 years being sellers at the deadline with 2 playoff appearances.
Doug, the one thing we really only anticipated, and we talked a lot about it last year with the new ownership, the improvements to the ballpark, the improvements with your television coverage, all the things that seem to be very positive going through the 25 season, just haven't materialized in 26. Do you think it's all the general manager, or is there other elements within the elements that are causing the problem?
I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different things. I mean, like I said earlier to somebody, I mean, Mike Elias isn't responsible for Gunnar Henderson hitting 220. Mike Elias isn't responsible for, Jordan Westberg and Felix Bautista and Ryan Helsley being hurt. He's tried to do some. He wasn't responsible for Taylor Ward, hitting, 6 home runs or whatever, coming off a 30-plus home run season. I mean, there's, a lot of different factors I think that boil into this. But, he's tried to put, I think at least this year, there was a lot of excitement after signing Pete Alonso. He's tried to put some good players on the field, but gosh, they just haven't really produced, and they've gotten it. I mean, I think Pete Alonso is a stand-up guy. I think he's a great guy for your clubhouse. He's obviously a proven, star in terms of his offensive and defensive prowess on the field. But, he basically, like, to paraphrase, kind of said, look, man, it's a business. Things like this stink. We've got other players that are going to step in here. We've got to play hard. We've got, 40-some, 50 games left to play. We're still in the playoff hunt. We started the year by not playing well in the beginning of the season, and we're going to have to fight through this. So I don't know what that means moving forward in terms of their blueprint. I mean, do they still, to Roger's point, do they still have a young core of players that, could wake up at any point in time? Jackson Holliday's still a youngster in his early 20s. Does Jordan Westberg come back next year healthy and contribute, in a big fashion? Does Gunnar Henderson finally, figure it out and become more consistent? Does Sam Basayo take the next step forward and become a catching superstar with his power and his arm? They locked up Bradish and Baz to longer-term deals from the pitching staff. Brandon Young's, was a relative nobody, undrafted guy that's won 8 or 10 games this year. There's a lot of, potential, again, going back to Roger's comment, but a lot of these guys that they have stockpiled in their minor leagues, I mean, they're not going to help us for another 2 years. So we keep talking about the future, but to me, if you're a Baltimore Oriole fan, the future has to be now. And I don't know how they fix that, moving forward next year. There's a lot of really good arms that are free agents, most notably Tariq Skubal. Is the Oriole front office, are they going to spend $200, $300, $400 million, in the off season to get some free agents in here? I don't know what the answer is, but I think, as an Oriole fan, I'm very disappointed that we're going to endure most likely another playoff miss.
Roger?
That's a shame because I think there is potential, and I'm like I go back to those great days, and even going to a lot of games at Memorial Stadium. They had the great broadcasters, and It was on, I forget what the name of that sports network was then, but they were like Prism in Philadelphia. They were like ahead of their time back then. That would have been in the late 70s, I guess. Yeah, early to mid 80s. John Lowenstein was you were probably too young. I don't know if you remember him.
I remember him. I mean, but if you looked at the Baltimore Orioles, it's kind of like the blueprint for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they've always been hard-nosed, tough defense, run the football. Well, the Baltimore Orioles were always, they had 4 20-game winners on the same staff. 4. I mean, I think Jim Palmer is one of the best pitchers that ever threw the baseball, but never really gets the credit for being that good. I mean, they had so many good, arms that were developed and pitched.
And managers. They had so many good managers.
Yeah, Earl was a Hall of Famer. I mean, you look at some of those guys. Al Bunbury was the Rookie of the Year. Cal Ripken was the Rookie of the Year. I mean, Eddie Murray was, one of the greatest, if not best, switch hitters of all time. Hitting 500 plus home runs and more than 3,000 hits. And they had a lot of really good role players. I mean, stinking Rick Dempsey was the World Series MVP in 1983. He was a nobody. And they've had, wonderful pedigree over the years, but we haven't had a 20-game winner for 40 years. That's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know how many 20-game winners are going to be anymore because you got to really be lucky now. You got to pitch 5 and 1/3 innings at least, and you got to be ahead by 4 or 5 runs when you go out to get a win. So 20 wins are going to be I think they're going to be a very short group of people in the 20-win category over the next 10 or so years. So they changed the philosophy of the game.
Well, again, that's the same thing as saying, he was a 1,000-yard running back. Well, that means different things to different people based on when they played. I mean, you're
how many games they played?
Sure,
was a 1,000-yard running back was great when we played 12 games or so. And now we're playing all these games, and now they still say, 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards doesn't mean anything compared to what it did when they were only 12 games.
You got to get 65 yards a game if you want to be a 1,000-yard rusher now. I mean, what could he do? But to me, it's the same concept as if you're talking about a 20-game winner.
Right.
The 20-game winner of yesteryear was, that guy took the baseball every 5 days. Earl Weaver wasn't coming out to get Jim Palmer in the 6th inning. It wasn't going to happen. No matter what, you're out there, bud. Figure it out. And now you have all these specialists, and he gets left-handers out, and he's your closer, and roles that they have. But essentially, if you can win, let's say 15 games in the major leagues, maybe that's the equivalency now. I don't know.
Roger. Well, yeah, you're exactly right about Jim Palmer, and the Phillies are having their alumni weekend, and Steve Carlton, is going to be there, and I think about, if Dallas Green went out to Steve Carlton and was going to pull him, Steve Carlton would have told him just go right back to the dugout, and he would have told Frank Lucchese the same thing. Okay. And it's just a different world. I'll tell you, I'm right now. I'm watching the Pirates and the Brewers, and it's nothing in the top of the 4th. And I don't get to see the Brewers that often because they're in the NL Central, and the Pirates. But I'll tell you, I did not realize that I think the Milwaukee Stadium or ballpark. It has a collapsible roof. It appears to me. Is that right? Anybody know? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they put that in when the commissioner was when he owned the team. Remember they?
Oh, Selig? Bud Selig?
Yeah. They built the new stadium then, and it had the roof. Remember there were a lot of problems. They had a lot of problems with leaks and all kinds of things in the early days. I don't know about how now it is. I haven't really seen that many games in Milwaukee, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the same way I am, Don. I just haven't seen it, but I'm watching this one, and Milwaukee's good. You mentioned it earlier, Don. They are the Brewers are very good, and but it's amazing when you don't get to see a team that often. Just like I saw the Orioles over the weekend, and And I got excited because it brought back great memories of attending games not only at Camden Yards, but it also at the Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great venue, and I can remember, in the early days before the new ballpark was ever built, Camden Yards, we went down to Memorial Stadium, and the only thing was difficult about Memorial Stadium, you had a little parking on the street. Other than having difficulty parking on the street, actually it was like Connie Mack Stadium in that sense. We always had to park on the street primarily at Connie Mack Stadium as well, because the only thing they had was that one lot across the way, but it was very difficult to get access, and then you couldn't get out when the game was over. So you usually parked on the street. And same thing in Baltimore, and I guess Doug would know that better than anybody because he's been a Baltimorean for a lot longer than I have.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was just a wee little kid when we kind of went to some of the Oriole games, and obviously now Camden Yard and M&T Bank Stadium are relatively close, so parking is generally not an issue in most of those spots. You still, in some cases, will have to divert a little bit, depending on whether you have a parking pass or not, to figure out where to park. I mean, downtown Baltimore is not exactly A, safe and B, convenient. So you'll get some people that ride light rail. You'll get, others that probably live close enough they can walk or do whatever. But it's not super convenient.
Well, let's switch over to the Rays or the Ravens. For a minute, because we're getting ready now. Camps are open. First exhibition game is going to be what we don't call an exhibition game, at the Hall of Fame game. Not an exhibition game. But anyway, to make a long story short, what's the early diagnosis on what's happening with the Ravens?
Well, I think a portion of that is obviously, can we stay healthy? Training camp and preseason has been a relative nightmare for the Orioles, or for the Ravens rather, in the past. Non-contact injuries and just silly stuff that happens. The Ravens locked up Zay Flowers for $140 million, and I personally think that he's to be mentioned with the number ones in the league in terms of wide receivers. We still have an MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and I think some people probably raise their eyebrow at Derrick Henry as he consistently just keeps putting up numbers, and he's getting older, obviously, and how much does he have left? I think he does a fabulous job of taking care of his body. He spends an awful lot of money on
puts up numbers. I'm telling you.
The departure of some of the players that we had, our tight end room certainly looks a little bit different with 2 rookies in there. So there's some rookie wide receivers. Jacoby Lane, I think, has played particularly well in the early portions of training camp. I think their tight ends, I think they were pretty high on the running back they got from Clemson. Just a really big version of running back that was a converted wide receiver. What is Trey Hendrickson going to look like in a Ravens uniform this year as he rushes the passer? What does Jesse Minter do with this defense as a defensive-minded head coach? Can we get back to Ravens football with better defense? We have a rookie, play caller in Declan Doyle, and what's that going to look like in terms of his meshing, if you will, with Lamar Jackson, and then how that manifests itself, on game days and play calls. One of the bigger question marks is our kicker. Tyler Luke obviously missed that kick that would have put us into the playoffs last year against the Steelers. It's going to be the Achilles heel of the Baltimore Ravens moving forward. We're pretty blessed with automatic type kickers with Matt Stover and I can't Justin, what's his name? I forget. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks there, but there's a lot of optimism. Justin Tucker, sorry, I couldn't remember his name.
Roger?
Yeah, the thing I'm just wondering about with the Ravens, with the new coach, And the Jackson controversy about his contract, now it's in the rearview mirror. Okay, so we don't have that to worry about, right? So, are there any issues that of the uncertainty with any contracts or anything like that that could put a maybe a detour on the Ravens getting back to playoff contention and being the strong, the defensive stalwart that they have been for a number of years?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you have your normal business happenings, if you will, with from time to time, you'll see some of these veterans that, as we move through camp, maybe they restructure contracts to save a few dollars, and it's probably the proposal of a guy like a Marlon Humphrey, who, I think his cap number's north of $15-20 million. So maybe man, we're thinking about cutting you here. How about we do this? We save a few bucks, and you can still stay a Raven. You'll see as these teams kind of take shape around the league, you'll see players that fall by the wayside that maybe they get traded or someone picks somebody up as a depth piece. So yeah, I mean, there's still, injuries obviously are going to happen throughout the course of camp that then require some attention, but back end fills there to make sure you have enough guys on your roster. There's probably some veterans, and we just saw Stephon Diggs just signed with the Commanders, so there's probably still a few more veterans out there that are looking for a home. So we'll see.
Doug, when you look at the overview, last year was obviously a little disappointing because of injuries and some of the things that happened. Is the fan base as it is? We're a little bit spoiled because we grew up with Philadelphia. We grew up with the New York Giants. We grew up with, looking at stadiums that were filled. And what's the reaction in Baltimore? Have the fans stayed with the Ravens all the way through? Are they still as strong as they were?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ending of the John Harbaugh era, I think, was probably imminent. I think that it was probably time. Just like you proposed the question earlier about Adley Rutschman. I think it was, a lot of the fan base, I think, was probably calling for a change in that respect when Brendan Hyde got fired. I mean, there's multiple movements of sorts that I think come to fruition there. But I mean, I think the Baltimore fan base is, we've endured some terrible baseball here over the last couple of years, and so a lot of your fan base is pretty rabid, if you will, to look for the Baltimore Ravens to come out of the gate here and play particularly well as a kind of a band-aid to being an Orioles fan at this point. So
Right.
The same thing occurred last year on the flip side of that when the Baltimore Ravens got knocked out when they missed that kick, and I think you turn the page immediately, and I think you start talking about a couple different things. The first of which is, okay, well, now I guess it's baseball season. We're excited because we just got Pete Alonso and some other moves that were made that bring you hope. And then the other concept is, how do we fix our current situation? Like, how do we make the Ravens better? Well, they fired Harbaugh. They bring in Minter. They bring in Declan Doyle. They bring in Trey Hendrickson. They bring in some different players, and now all of a sudden that same brood of excitement is present again. So, tertiary to that, if you can talk about the DMV, the Washington Capitals have made, quite a few good off-season pickups and free agency. So, the starting of every season, I think, is the equivalency of hope. We all unfortunately know that when training camp breaks, only one team's going to hoist the Lombardi. When spring training breaks, only one team's going to hoist that trophy for being champion. But everybody thinks it could be them at that point.
Roger?
Doug, I have to tell you, I was at the Falcons camp the last 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that gets me is the number of full-time employees that these teams have.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just, people working in social media that are large staffs of people. Okay, and a young woman going around taking pictures of fans, and I asked her, I said, what do you do? And and she told me, and she says, I'm in the social media department. So I said, you do TikTok and all this other stuff. Exactly. And I mean, Don and I have talked about this even off the air, about how many people, coaches, if you look at the staff of the Falcons, the coaching staff, it's enormous.
Yeah.
And I just I wonder whether it's the right thing to do, whether there's an overkill or they're just spending money because it's so important today with all these different ancillary areas that exist today.
Well, I mean, it certainly takes a village of people to stand behind a franchise from, all the way at the top where your heaviest brass is set all the way down to the bottom where, you have different people that have responsibilities far-reaching that they specialize in a certain area. As you mentioned, it could be social media. I mean, if you look at in my case, I look at the Baltimore Orioles and I listen to, my wife would attend, various different meetings that encompass, ties, if you will, where all departments are pulling, in the same direction because of a specific theme night they have. Or, this evening there was a Grateful Dead concept that they, were endorsing in terms of their theme night tonight, and she developed a particular T-shirt for that event that was advertised on TV. And if you signed up for this deal, for tickets or whatever, you got a special hat, or there's all these things that happen on a daily basis. To we live in a different world now, where in our days we got actual paper tickets. And
No more.
You sat out in the bleachers and you bought a 75-cent bag of peanuts and you got a $2 beer and whatever. Now it's all about the social media. It's all about the experience. It's all about, Mr. Splash. If you sit in that special area for the Orioles and somebody hits a double and you get wet and whatever, the Brewers have the whatever that slides down the beer thing. And there's all these different things, was it
promotional skills, my boy, promotional skills.
Yeah. Everything sells. I mean, TikTok and Instagram and all these things are just ridiculously popular for people to, find innovative ideas and promote different things. And, what was it? TikTok, I saw the commercial. It was some guy who was creating spices in his kitchen, and he turned out, it was Dano or whatever, and he turned out to be, they sell that at Walmart, whatever. I mean, there's all these stories of that kind of stuff. It's crazy.
Let's get to your expertise. Let's get something about golf, because golf, you turn on golf Thursday through Sunday, and you know what you see? You see golf, and you see great players, you see great shots, and in my view, and I've talked to you about it many times, there's just so many great golfers throughout, whether it's the amateur bracket or whether you're in the pros. There are just so many great players, and the game is controlled. And I hope it remains. I hope the PGA can maintain their strength and not get screwed up with love and all these other things, and get themselves into a mess like every other sport has done. Golf has been able to consistently maintain the luster of the game, and that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic, Don, and we probably could have talked the majority of time this evening about that topic, because I think there's a lot of different branches to that tree. The first of which, typically you have a piece that we talk about, the Live Tour, which they've secured funding for at least one more year. So they're kind of on a hiatus, if you will. They're going to survive at least one more season. But the health of the PGA Tour, I mean, yes, you've got the players are the players, and you've got, so many of your youngsters that are coming up now, that you've got, 2 first-time winners in the previous, 2 weeks. the health of the game in terms of the playing ability is pretty strong. I mean, do we miss, that icon guy, your Tiger Woods, your Jack Nicklaus, your whatever? Sure. I mean, but who's going to fill that role moving forward? I don't know. Guys like, Scotty Scheffler have done a pretty good job of winning a lot of golf tournaments, Rory, and guys like that. But you're still talking about a game that is a traditional game where, nowadays when you talk about the game, everybody's riding in a golf cart. We used to walk. We used to carry our own bag. The sets of tees, for forever, we were fine playing the game from where it was. And then all of a sudden we decided we wanted to make it harder. So we moved everything back. And we have all these 7,000 plus yard golf courses. Well, now moving forward, now they're going to say, okay, well, you hit the ball too far, so we're going to roll the golf ball back. And, golf clubs are different now. I mean, I had a kid in my junior golf camp, which is going on this week. And I have no idea where he got this, but he had a persimmon driver. And he pulled that thing out of his bag and he looked at me, he put me right on the spot and he said, "Coach, I want to see you hit this thing." And I laughed and I thought, oh shit, like this is going to be ugly. And I probably hit it, maybe 240 or so, you know what I mean? From the range aspects. But those old persimmon drivers, if you look from heel to toe and from top to bottom of face, had bulge and roll, which protruded the middle of the club. And if you didn't hit it on the sweet spot, boy, that thing was ugly. And if you look at the size of those persimmon drivers, I mean, holy moly, that's Fightnwords are bigger than that now, So it's just crazy how when you look at the game and how it's progressed, they've almost gotten to that point where they're saying, "Uh-oh," you know what I mean? Like we need to go backwards from here because it's people are hitting the ball too far, the equipment's too good, the ball's too good, blah blah blah. So yeah, I mean, look at those guys on tour, Don. I mean, look how far they're hitting the daggone golf ball. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, some of the numbers that you hear, like, oh, well, he's, 165 out and he's hitting 9-iron, and you're like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, but they've also altered the clubs themselves. I mean, traditionally speaking, if you looked at some of the clubs that we grew up playing in those, blade style clubs, your pitching wedge, I mean, what degree of loft was that now? I mean, holy crap. It's 44 degrees now. That used to be like your 9 or your 8-iron. You know what I mean? Like everything's changed.
No question about that, Roger.
Yeah, did you ever have one of those drivers, Don?
No, persimmon wood. No, I never had one of those.
I did.
But,
Are they expensive?
At the time? No, not now.
If you're an antique collector, they are.
Yeah.
If you have a collection, if you're a collector, some of those old type clubs, people use them for decorations. They use them for so many different things.
Yeah.
But the equipment that they have now is so refined that, and it's interesting to see. At least I thought it was interesting anyway. That Ben Hogan would not allow any of his clubs to go out unless he knew that they were made exactly the way he wanted them made. And you couldn't refine anything that Ben Hogan did. Ben Hogan had his set of golf clubs, and they were the ones he wanted sold. He didn't want anything else sold. And I don't know, you know better than I would, Doug. That's the way it was, and I'm assuming that's the way his company must still be today.
I would think so. I think that the very first set of golf clubs, adult set of golf clubs that I ever played, I guarantee you my mom and dad still have them in the basement, is I played the Hogan PCs, Precision Chrome, or Precision something, I forget what it was called. I mean, the literal sweet, it was a blade style. There were no muscle backs, there were no cavity backs. I'm sorry, there were no cavity backs. It was just a straight blade. And like the sweet spot of that thing was probably about maybe half a dime. I mean, if you didn't hit that thing in the center, it was a tremendous miss hit. I mean, we used to play with 2 irons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember as that time frame kind of moved forward and we got into the metal woods and some of the cavity back clubs, my dad still had a 3-iron, and I said, "Dad, why do you carry a 3-iron?" And he said, "Well, in case I see a snake on the course."
Yeah. Well, one of the most famous shots in golf is Jack Nicklaus had a gusset when he hit the 1-iron. I mean, how many people even have a 1-iron?
Well, that was Ben Hogan from area, and they have a plaque there. I think he hit a
Right. That's right.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure, because my dad played the Hogan Apex, similar style in terms of bladed club. And there was a 1-iron with that. And I remember he probably still has, I remember looking at that thing, like you could literally put butter on that thing and put it on your toast. I mean, that's how it's that straight of a face. So.
I know I donated my clubs to the thrift store over at the church over in White Marsh. And, I mean, it was a heavy bag, taking it out of my car. Yeah. But I also had a lot of wooden shafts in there of my dad's clubs. Yeah. And yet I tried to sell some things individually to collectors that might use them for decoration. And I did not have a whole lot of success. I went to golf courses and talked to players. And, I tried everything to try to move them without just, to sell them, rather than donate them.
Think about the golf ball. I mean, you guys, the Bellata golf ball, that was the thing. Like, probably early to mid 90s, the Bellata golf ball, Titleist. I mean, it literally came from the Bellata tree. And if you hit one shot that was a little thin, the cover of that thing was so soft, that thing would smile at you. I mean, it was, like you'd have to throw that sucker away. But I mean, the Bellata golf balls aren't made anymore because there aren't any more stinking trees. We used them all,
Yeah.
So, you've got.
I can't tell you the last time now. Of course, I'm getting old now, but the last time that I split a ball, a golf ball, I can't tell you the last time.
Exactly. The golf balls now that's what their calling card is. They're incredibly durable. I mean, even if you look at the most premium of golf balls and your Titleist Pro V1, Pro V1X, I mean, they're so durable. I mean, you're going to lose it before you mess it up.
With my golf game, I use that French ball, RANGE.
They're like every other member in the world. That's what they do.
Well, Frank always had balls that floated.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to find range balls on the course all the time, and I think you guys are paying $1,000 a month to be a member. Why in the hell are we using range balls? Seriously. I mean,
I interviewed one fellow when I was down in Sarasota that belonged to the club out there, and he still used. He I don't know whether they were his father's clubs or how he had it, but he had a set of wooden gloves that he still used all the time. And I wondered myself, how in the world, with all the perfection of new equipment and all, but this in his mind was, I said, well, maybe it was something that was endeared to him because of his father or what, but he used wooden gloves all the time. I mean, it's unbelievable.
There's still golfers today that, are still kind of caught up in that traditional aspect of the game that won't.
Right.
They don't use rangefinders. They don't, do certain things that the rest of the world, has adopted, moving forward to make the game a little easier. They still walk. They still carry their bags. I mean, hell, they probably still wear wingtips. They wear pleated pants. Like there's some, a faction of people that are still kind of stuck, if you will, in that reverse mode of what golf used to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
well, as I said, the way you said earlier is one of the most amazing things to me in watching golf on the weekends, the tournaments. I mean, a 555 to 600 yard hole for those guys is at most a 5-iron and a drive. I mean, that's at most.
Exactly. I mean, they're just the golf ball and how much swing speed the ball is moving off of the face of the club at north of 180 miles an hour. And that translation to their swing speed, to that golf ball speed, just they hit it so stinking far. It's unbelievable.
Tick, tick, tock, tick, tick, tock.
Something that our professor tells us, Frank says it's time to go. Okay, Frank, we'll turn it over. Doug, thank you very much. Of course,
have a great week, Doug. Thank you
to Mike and to Roy and all the folks that joined us on the program tonight. Thank you so very much. Hope we had a little bit of an entertaining show for you. Frank, it's all yours. Mr. Carroll, go to it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, these programs are brought to you each and every night of the week in grateful appreciation to the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, the men and women police and fire services. When you're out there and you see somebody in uniform, please let them know that you know they're there. These programs are dedicated to those who've lost their lives in line of duty. Deputy Robert Anthony Carroll, Patrolman Jeffrey Colcap, Patrolman David Curtis, Patrolman Jeffrey Yaslowitz, Sergeant Thomas Batinger, San Diego Officer Mike Hendler, Sergeant Tom Wilson, Charlotte County Sheriff's Department, Detective Randy Bell, Detective Ricky Childers, Patrolman Charlie Condit, Tarpon Springs Police Department, Deputy Chief Mike Godwin, Philadelphia Fire Department, Lieutenant Joyce Craig Lewis, Philadelphia Fire Department, Sergeant James O'Connor, Philadelphia Police Department, Sergeant Chris LeVake, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, excuse me, Lieutenant Mike Zerba, Newcastle County Police, Patrolman Anafo Crispin, Lakeland PD, Deputy Josh Meyer, Nassau County Sheriff's Department, Captain Matt Letourneau, Philadelphia Fire Department, Captain Chris Leach, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Ardith Hope, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Jerry Feist, Wilmington Fire Department, Chief Jimmy Ford, Wilmington Fire Department, Chief Al Hogle, Longbow Key Police Department, Deputy Mike Hargrove, Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, Trooper Chelsea Richards, Florida Highway Patrol, Trooper Joe Bullock, Florida Highway Patrol, Trooper Zachary Ben, Florida Highway Patrol, Sergeant Chris Fitzgerald, Philadelphia Police Department, Sergeant Ramon Mendez, Philadelphia Police Department, Chief Corey Compantier, Buffalo Creek Fire Department, Deputy Ronnie Ronazinski, Madison County Sheriff's Department, Patrolman Zachary Butterfield, Bradenton PD, and Corporal Timothy O'Connor, Pennsylvania State Police. My brothers and sisters, though, you may be 10-7 at this time. At some time, we'll be 10-10 at the table of the Lord. Until that time, may the rose rise up to meet you. May the winds be always at your back. May the rains fall softly on your fields and the sun shine lightly on your face. Until we meet again, may the good Lord keep you and your family always in the palm of his hands. Good night. God bless and have a great week.